So if we want to correct market failures like underproduction or underconsumption, so let's say there's not enough healthy food being produced or consumed, or there's not enough people wearing bicycle helmets, we can use these government interventions. The government can set a maximum price on bike helmets to make sure that they're really cheap and everyone can buy them. The government can
Okay.
subsidize bike helmets or healthy food to ensure that they're cheap enough for people to buy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, there's a few others as well. We're going to go through them all one by one, but just so you can kind of separate them. And then stuff that's bad, vapes, fast food, sugary drinks, the government can tax them, make them more expensive, make it less attractive for people to buy them. Okay.
Yeah.
Or you can put a minimum price on them. And then the pollution one you asked me about, we can use pollution permits. And then for both cases, we can just do provision of information to educate people about externalities and why something is good or bad to produce or consume. We're going to go through them one by one. So let's just start in order with indirect taxes. So, an indirect tax is an extra cost of production imposed on firms by the government. Now, do you remember PC twins for supply? So PC twins were the factors that caused the supply curve to shift.
Yeah.
So it should be a good clue because the I and the S stand for indirect taxes and subsidies. So the minute you think of indirect taxes and subsidies, just think, okay, I need to shift the supply curve. Yeah.
Okay.
We also had cost of production, the C, right? But anyway, all
Yeah.
of if the government tax firms every time they make something, so say it costs 20p to make a can of Coke, the government are charging the firm 5p, so they have to pay 20p to make the can of Coke plus 5p extra to the government. So what would
Yeah.
happen to the supply curve?
It would shift left.
Exactly. So if this is my market for this is my overall market for sugary drinks. Before the tax, I had a quantity of Q1. The government would have researched the market failure and understood that there's an overconsumption because people were ignoring the negative externalities of sugary drinks, right?
Yeah.
Causes obesity, causes a strain on the NHS, causes poor health, right?
Yeah.
So what could they do? They could tax it. If they tax sugary drinks, supply shifts to the left because producers are willing and able to firms are willing and able to produce less sugary drinks at each price level. Yeah. New
Yeah.
equilibrium is here. What happened to the quantity?
The quantities decreased.
Perfect. And that is a good thing because we said that there was an over consumption before. Over
Yeah.
consumption.
Oh, would you have to draw these graphs side by side in an
You
exam?
don't need to. It depends on the question. This is when you get to the stage where you're writing essays, everything should be like optional. It depends on how you feel and what you want to explain. In this case,
Okay.
no, you don't. But you'd probably want to briefly explain that the reason the government are considering indirect taxes is because they know that there are negative externalities with sugary drinks or with fast food or with pollution, which is what you were asking about.
Yeah.
Okay. And therefore, since the quantity's gone down from Q1 to Q2 as a result of the tax, the market failure has, in theory, been reduced. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. With every government intervention we do, we're going to learn the weaknesses of them too. First, let's just go through some things on the graph. So, the first thing we need to know is how much did they tax the good by? So, first thing is this is a real life example. The government introduced a sugar tax. I think it was 2018 when the government started a sugar tax. Do you know about the sugar tax?
No, not really.
Okay.
But for your exams, don't you need to use like real life examples?
Well, in year 12, you get extracts with every question, so you don't really need to. But for year 13, you should have some basic examples for most topics. Nothing too fancy, but you should know a couple
Yeah.
examples, yeah. So in this case, I'm using sugar tax. The idea was that people are drinking Coca Cola and Fanta and Red Bull, but they were drinking the ones with sugar in them. Because of the tax, the ones with sugar became more expensive. So now, if you tried to buy Coca Cola, the red one, they would be way
Yeah.
more expensive than Coke Zero or Diet Coke. So
Yeah.
next time you go to the shop, try and notice that the price difference, and you'll see there's a big difference, and that's just because of the tax on sugar. So the ones with sugar cost more than the ones with sweeteners. So this is an example of one that's probably been a good success because people are now consuming less of the sugary drinks and more of the ones with sweetness, the sugar-free ones.
Yeah.
Okay. How much was the tax? Well, if you look at how much the supply curve increased by, that's how much the tax was.
You mean decreased? Right.
Sorry, decreased by.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we go to the new equilibrium and we do it there, that would be best. That's the amount of the tax. That's the tax per unit.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's how much at Q2 supply would have been in line here, but now it's here.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Meaning that at Q2, that's the price that they're having to charge now, whereas that's the price they were willing and able to charge before the tax. Now, this entire rectangle, make sure you start it at Q2, P2. This entire rectangle is the tax revenue. Where does that go?
The tax to the government.
Yep. From firms to the government, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Would you label the bottom line of the rectangle? What would you label that? Or would you?
Wait, I'm gonna explain that.
Okay.
The rectangle as a whole is the tax revenue. Now, who's paying more for sugar? Is it the producer or the consumer? Or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Who's paying a higher price in the actual shop?
Consumer.
Cool. So you see how there's P2 to P1, P1 to P2?
Yeah.
That's the consumer burden. And the bit that's hidden that we don't see is that producers are also paying some of it to the government before we even realize. So that's the producer burden.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, government failure, there's 4 types. Information failure, market distortions, unintended consequences, and excessive administrative costs. So all we need to be able to do is apply a couple of them or even just one of them in detail and explain why there's also a chance that indirect taxes might be a problem. They might not work or they might worsen the government, the market failure, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you 1 or 2 examples and you can stick to them or do your own. I'll give you 2. Unintended consequences. One example of an unintended consequence in this market is that a sugar tax causes people to substitute sugary drinks with those with sweeteners. You could argue that sweeteners are less widely researched than sugar, and this can cause health issues in the future.
Yeah.
Or it
Okay.
doesn't resolve bad habit of having unhealthy drinks, sweeteners might be better, but are still unhealthy. Therefore, all it's doing is shifting the problem of drinking sugary drinks to drinking fizzy drinks with sweeteners in them.
Yeah.
One more example would be information failure. Two of the things the government have to get bang on before doing a tax is one, the size of the externalities. Size of externalities. And externalities are really hard to quantify. So they may not know how much the burden is on the NHS purely because of sugar. It could be because of other reasons, like people not going to the gym. How can you tell how much of the problem is purely because of sugar, right?
Yeah.
And another thing they won't know perfectly well is PED, because they may not have enough data to understand what happens when the price changes. So really quickly, I'd recommend that you draw it yourself and find out exactly how it works. But here you've got an indirect tax if demand is inelastic. So with the sugar tax, it worked really well because there's a substitute for sugar. However, for so many years, the government were taxing cigarettes. They've recently banned them for those born in 2009 onwards. But cigarettes were always taxed, but people kept on smoking and smoking and smoking. Why? Because they were addictive and there was no alternative.
Yeah.
So my diagram isn't amazingly laid out, but if you can see, the price increase is still there, but the quantity barely decreases. Ideally, I would have emphasized it a bit more, right?
Yeah. Wait.
And
So, and production.
yeah, yeah. And indirect tax is the only type of tax you have to know in year 12, micro.
Oh, okay.
In micro. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. There's two types. There's a ad valorem and there's a specific tax. One of them is a percent. One of them is per unit. So I could say tax sugary drinks, 5p per can. I
Wait,
could
so
say
ad valorem is the percentage tax.
yeah, but it doesn't really matter. You just need to draw a shift in supply.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and also, again, I don't know if you can notice, but maybe it'll be better if I. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but the producer burden is very, very small. The consumer burden is bigger. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
because they pass on
yeah, and
the
they are able to pass on the tax as a price increase as they are aware that the good is inelastic. Therefore, they know that they're not going to lose much revenue.
yeah, to protect their
Okay. So, remind me, what was your essay question that you had to do? So, in your question about waste, the extract would have given more information. So, when you read the extract, it might say that mobile phones, people are throwing away old mobile phones and they keep buying new ones even though they don't have to. For example, the government
yeah.
could tax mobile phones to prevent people from just buying new phones whenever they feel like it. And
Yeah.
then you could do the same diagram and you could say a government failure might be that it's hard to judge the PED of mobile phones if mobile phones are seen a new mobile phone is seen as, I'm just making up an example, the extract will help you more than what I'm saying. If mobile phones are inelastic, meaning that people will always buy a new phone because it's addictive to, or because it's a necessity to, or because it's a small percentage of their income, because mobile phones companies are offering like cheap upgrades, people will continue to buy the mobile phone despite the price rise, and therefore there would be a government failure because the quantity is not falling to the socially optimal level of output.
Yeah. Okay.